Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Frank Martin, the transporter, moving from southern France to Miami. He takes a temporary job as a chauffeur, as a favor to a friend, for wealthy Audrey and Jefferson Billings. One day, while about to pick up their son Jack from school, a girl approaches Frank, and asks for help. He declines, but she pulls a gun on him. He calmly gets out of the car, and a gang tries to steal it. They can't start the car, because it needs a code. When they threaten him, he removes his coat, and defeats them. He picks up Jack from school, and they play a game on the way home. Jack enjoys spending time with him, and they seem to have a good bond. When they get to the Billings house, Frank notices the parents arguing. Audrey Billings admires Frank, and talks to her husband, about their unhappy marriage, mentioning that Jack has a hospital appointment the next morning. Unknown to them, someone is spying on their conversation. At night, Frank's dinner is interrupted by Audrey, who has developed feelings for him. He politely sends her home, explaining that he follows strict rules. The spy is a gangster named Gianni Cellini, who has ordered a virus, and its cure. Gianni plans to spread the virus worldwide, and has his team injected into Jack, knowing Senator Jefferson Billings will soon meet with important government officials, and the virus will spread quickly from person to person. The next morning, Frank is getting ready for the arrival of his friend, Inspector Turconi, a French detective who is visiting him in Florida, for a vacation. Frank drives Jack to the hospital for his appointment. Jack is scared, but Frank reassures him he will keep him safe, and that no one can harm him. Unbeknownst to Frank, Gianni's team has already killed the real doctor and nurse, taking their places. When Frank asks the nurse about the doctor, she tells him the doctor is on leave, and another doctor will see Jack. The fake doctor tells him to wait outside, leaving Jack alone with the gangsters. Frank soon notices suspicious details, like the nurse's inappropriate high heels, and a small amount of blood dripping from a door. Realizing something is wrong, he bursts into the doctor's office, just in time to stop the man from injecting Jack with the virus. He tells Jack to hide in a vent, and then he fights off the imposters. As he tries to escape with Jack, Lola, one of Gianni's henchmen, opens fire on him. Frank manages to protect himself and Jack, and they run to the parking lot. Lola instructs her men to plant a bomb under Frank's Audi. Frank escapes in the car, and although she tries to shoot him, the car's bulletproof features protect them. Lola informs Gianni that their initial plan has failed, but they must proceed with the next phase. Frank arrives at Senator Jefferson's house, where a surprise party is planned for Jack. As Frank enters, his phone rings. Gianni tells him that Jack is within range of a sniper, and that his bulletproof glass won't protect against the sniper's gun. Knowing Jack is in danger, Frank reluctantly allows Lola into the car. Audrey is also worried about Jack's safety. Following Gianni's instructions, Frank speeds away in his Audi, with the police in pursuit. He manages to evade the police, causing several of their cars to crash. Eventually, he arrives at Gianni's warehouse, who orders him to leave without Jack. Frank, with no other choice, returns to his car, and inspects the bomb. He knows what to do. He accelerates the Audi, and performs a maneuver to dislodge the bomb, which explodes moments later, leaving him safe for now. He barely survives, and learns that Gianni has demanded a ransom of $100 million from Jefferson, for Jack's safe return. The senator suspects Frank might be involved, but his wife believes in Frank, because he promised to protect Jack. When Frank calls Senator Jefferson, he realizes the police are also after him. To avoid them, he leaves his phone at the scene, and contacts Inspector Turconi, who is staying at his house. The police quickly apprehend Turconi, but they recognize him as a fellow officer, and release him. Frank heads to the hospital to find the fake doctor, Dimitri. He discovers the virus serum in the doctor's office, but a man pulls a gun on him. He fights and defeats the man, but the serum is accidentally destroyed. Frank quickly devises a plan. He creates a fake serum, and safely escapes the hospital. He reaches out to Turconi for help, who, now back at the police station, gains access to the computer system. Frank sends him a photo of the fake doctor, whom Turconi identifies as a Russian biologist, and helps Frank track down Dimitri. Frank finds his house, but Dimitri, terrified, pulls out a gun and starts shooting. Unfazed, Frank pursues him. He flees through a fire exit, and runs out of bullets. He boards a bus, but Frank spots a jet ski, jumps on it, and chases him. After an impressive leap, Frank lands the jet ski on the road, catches Dimitri on the bus, and injects him with the virus. Now desperate, Dimitri runs to find the antidote, knowing he will die without it. Frank secretly follows him. Dimitri rushes to a lab, demanding the cure from the scientist in charge, and in panic, kills Tipov, another of Gianni's men, to force the scientist to comply. Frank arrives just in time to confront Dmitri, killing another henchman. It is revealed that Dmitri was not actually infected with the virus. When Frank refuses to bargain, the scientist reveals that anyone Jack breathes on will get infected by the virus. The scientist then throws the only 2 vials containing the antidote out of the window. Frank leaps out after them, flying through the air like a superhero. He bumps into a taxi, and lands on the ground, dropping the 2 vials. Desperately dodging traffic, he retrieves one antidote, but it breaks. He spots the second one, and leaps to grab it, barely escaping from under a truck's tire. Meanwhile, Senator Jefferson gives Gianni the ransom money, but they are upset, because they haven't received Jack. Soon, a police officer informs them their son has been found. They go to see him, but out of fear, they use a robot to open the door. The process takes too long, and Jack's mother, fed up with waiting, runs towards the van. With tears in her eyes, she opens the door and greets Jack. Lola and Gianni are happy to see that Jack has been infected, as confirmed when they notice Jack has a fever, and the virus is passed on to his parents. Jefferson, head of the Office of National Drug Control Policy, tells his wife that he will be back after a conference, and leaves. Frank calls Audrey and asks her to meet him in the bedroom. There, he tells her to keep quiet, and reveals that Jack is infected with a virus that will kill anyone who comes close to him. She is devastated, but he shows her the remaining antidote vial that can save Jack. They administer the antidote to Jack, while Frank explains that the actual target is Senator Jefferson, and promises to find Gianni. As Frank leaves the room, he gets into a fight, subdues a man, and handcuffs him. Audrey tries to warn her husband about the virus, but he can't hear her, and says he'll call back. The virus is now spreading in the conference room, affecting the attendees, heads of anti-drug organizations from around the world. Frank contacts Inspector Turconi for help in locating Gianni, and gets Gianni's address. Realizing that his car is being followed by the police, Frank borrows a taxi driver's car, and drives to Gianni's house, where Gianni injects the remaining antidote into himself, telling Lola that carrying the antidote in his body is the safest option. Then suddenly, Frank breaks into the house, catching him off guard. Gianni orders his bodyguards to stop Frank, and they start firing at him with heavy guns. Despite the intense gunfire, Frank manages to get inside the building. Confronted by more men, Frank fights them off one by one, with his exceptional combat skills, disarming and defeating them. As he approaches Gianni, he draws his gun, but Gianni warns him that if he dies, the antidote will be lost. Now, Frank can't risk killing him. Just then, Lola appears and points a gun at Frank. Gianni orders her to kill him, reminding Frank that he has a flight to catch. A fierce fight ensues. Lola fires continuously, trying to kill Frank, but he manages to avoid the bullets. He kicks her, trapping her in a wine rack, where she takes her last breaths. Seeing Gianni escape to a helicopter, Frank spots a Lamborghini in the garage, and speeds off in pursuit. A live news channel captures his high-speed chase, showcasing his impressive driving skills. He arrives at the airport just as Gianni's private jet is preparing to take off, and drives the car onto the runway, and manages to use the car to board the plane, climbing onto the jet's landing gear. Inside, the co-pilot tries to check the landing gear, but is killed by Frank. Gianni, seeing Frank on board, pulls a gun, and tells him to sit down, preparing for a final showdown. During their struggle, Gianni accidentally shoots the pilot, causing the plane on the path to crash. As the plane descends towards the sea, they continue to fight. Frank eventually overpowers Gianni, but the jet crashes into the water. Underwater, Gianni tries to kill Frank again, but Frank defeats him. Realizing they are both sinking, Frank decides to save Gianni, because he needs the antidote. He gives Gianni a life jacket, and swims to the surface through the emergency exit. Police boats and helicopters arrive to capture Gianni. Finally, Frank goes to the hospital with flowers, intending to visit the Billings family. Seeing them happy and reunited, he decides to leave quietly. Outside, Turconi waits for him in the car. As they drive away, Frank's phone rings. A man on the other end says he needs a transporter. He replies, "I'm listening," hinting at his next adventure. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.